the one, the only Benzion. Good morning and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube. Iyun with Benzion. Today's Benzion Sotah, Daf Chav Tet, number 29. The Gemara here elaborates on Chav Tet and Aleph on what we talked about yesterday, which is a very important halacha. The topic Tuma. If you're not sure about Tuma, whether something's Tamei or not, whether it's touch something which is Tamei or not. So in Rosh Hashanah, we learn from Sotah that you go l'chumra, right? It's topic Sotah. She's secluded with a man. We don't know if there was bia or not, if she committed adultery or not. So that's called Tuma, the pasuk says. So in Rosh Hashanah, it's a secluded place, it's Tamei. If it's a public place, it's Torah. We're not sure. You go l'kula. And there was another halacha we learned out that a Sotah, an adulterer and an adulteress, they have dasli shal. You can ask them technically. So only in that case we go safek and shtiyachid, we go l'chumra. But if there's no dasli shal, let's say a katan touched something which is tamei, we don't. The katan is not at the age to understand if he was tamei or not, or the thing he touched was tamei. So therefore, you go l'kula in that case also. And the Gemara brings another pasuk to say the same thing. And the Gemara on Chav Tet and Aleph brings the limud from Gidal Marav. A pasuk seems to contradict itself. And we learn from the pasuk the contradiction that sometimes Safek Tuma you go l'kula, and sometimes Safek Tuma you go l'chumra. What's the difference? If it's yesh bo dasli shal, if you could ask the person, they have intellect, so then you go l'chumra. If not, you go l'kula. And the Gemara explains why you need both from a Sotah and Rav Gidal Marav. But the point really comes out, what we didn't talk about yesterday so much, about this concept of Yesh bo dasli shal, Ein bo dasli shal. What does that basically mean? It means basically if you have a Safek Tuma occurred, even in in a private place, if the person there's no person to ask. We're not sure if there's two foods which touch each other, two objects touch each other, none of them have intellect, or it was a katan who doesn't have intellect, you go l'kula. Now, hard to understand. If the kayas of the Safek Tuma we learn from a Sotah, which is a din d'oraisa, obviously, right? Chad lebal, chad lebal. It is a d'oraisa to be with her husband or to be with the adulterer anymore until she drinks the mei Sotah. So that's a d'oraisa. However, when it comes to Tuma v'tara or things tamei or tor, it doesn't seem to be that that's the case. It seems to be that it's d'Rabbanan, right? How do I know it's d'Rabbanan? First of all, if it's Sharabim, it's kula go kula. Why should we make a difference in Shiyach and Sharabim? I understand by Sotah it makes sense that there's a difference in Shiyach and Sharabim. But when secluded, people when they're secluded will more oftentimes engage in bia, adultery. However, in public they're not going to engage in adultery. So it makes sense over there. But by Tuma, what's the logical difference whether it's in a private place or a public place? And secondly, you have this fact of Ein bo dasli shal, Yesh bo dasli shal. Obviously, it has nothing to do with a Sotah. It doesn't make a difference over there, but it has nothing to do with Tuma and Tara. And Rav Gidal Marav learned at a pasuk which talks about Tuma and Tara, about Kodesh Mi, whether it's Torah or Tamei. What does that have to do with Dasli Shal, Ein bo dasli shal, that you could find out or you can't find out? If I could find out if it's Tamei, so then you go l'chumra. If I can't find out, you go l'kula. The fact is, if I can't find out, you go l'kula, shows that mido raisa, on the raisa level, by Tuma and Tara, not by Bia over here, which Torah refers to as Tuma. The whole concept of Safek Tuma, really, midoraisa you go l'kula, bein b'shiyachid and sharabim. Even b'shiyachid, if there's no dasli shal, they're both objects, or one is a katan, and he's not sure what happened, you can't ask him, so midoraisa you go l'kula. Safek Tuma, as I explained before, Tuma and Tara is very different than Isra v'Heder. Tuma and Tara is only a status, a spiritual status. There's nothing to prove that something is Torah or Tamei. You can't analyze it under a microscope and figure out if it's Torah or Tamei. It's a purely spiritual concept. You can't see. There's no way of a person detecting whether a person is Torah or Tamei. They've touched something which is Tamei or not. There's no way to decipher that. So it must be that the whole concept of Tuma we see from the Gemara is l'kula, because we can't. Something Isra v'Heter, at least when this is Chazak Isra, the Isra was there. There's one piece of Shuman, one piece of Chalev, so we know one piece was not kosher. There's a way of figuring out whether something's not kosher or not, right? You go back, it's chaylev, you analyze the piece. This is forbidden fats from an animal. So we know we can analyze it and figure it out. There's actual proof in the evidence, in the physiological evidence, that there's an isser over here. But Tuma, there's no physiological evidence at all. There's no proof at all. So therefore, it's merely in our minds, in our conception. So the concept of something Tuma, we go l'kula midorai, just like by Isra v'Heter, if there's no Iskazik Isra, there's one piece of me, there's no way of determining this. So you go Lakula. If we can't figure something out, you go Lakula. And that's really the idea behind Ein Bodas Lishal. There's no way of figuring it out. You go Lakula. Especially by Tumantari, you go Lakula. It happens to be that the Yesh Bodas Lishal, we learn from a Sotah, if it's Yachid, but must be, since the whole concept of Tuma really is Lakula, it must be that's a Chumrah. Right? It must be, even though everyone seems to learn, Tuma Sharab, Bishus Yachid, if Yesh Bodas Lishal, you go Lechumrah, you say it's Tamei, that must be the Rabbanon, because the whole concept is the Oraisa. So it must be, since there's a way of figuring it out. So the Torah, the Rabbanon said, mandate you go figure it out. That's the idea behind Das Lishal. Since, right, it's only Das Lishal is only relevant to Tuma and Tara. Since I could figure it out, the Rabbanon said, go try to figure it out. Really, we don't Oraisa, you go Lekul, it's not Tamei. However, since there's a possibility, so the Rabbanan mandated you to do that, which is Tamei, if Yesh Das Lishal, that's the whole idea, Yesh Das Lishal. Go ask. Because the Chumrah the Rabbanan, that's what I believe. Hope you enjoyed today's share. See you in the next one.